Welcome to Beyond Broken Hungry. Juggling your career, relationships, nutrition, fitness, finance, try to pursue your dreams, and stay sane can be a bit of a struggle. With the help of expertise from a variety of wellness experts and tips and tricks from everyday people, this podcast is here to share it all to make this journey we call life just a little more balanced. I'm stumbling towards wellness right alongside you, and I'm so happy to have you come along this journey. With that in mind, let's jump into this week's episode of Beyond Broken Hungry. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Broken Hungry. I am your host, Dara Sweat, and I have the honor of having Miss Makena Romagnano with me today for today's episode. Makena, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to kind of get into the nitty-gritty, get to know you a little bit more, and hear what you have to say about nutrition and fitness and all that other jazz. So before we get into everything, tell us about who Makena is, the online fitness and nutrition coach, who you are outside of that, and how you even got to be there.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. Tell me your life story.
Literally in like 5 minutes. Let's go. Well, I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach, and I've been running my business now for roughly, I think 2-year anniversary is coming up in January. So super exciting stuff. I actually fell into this position through a bit of like a weird kind of mix of events. Well, I should say now I am in Boston. I've moved around. I love traveling. I have a lot of different things about me, but the biggest thing that kind of brought me to where I am today is that I struggled with an eating disorder all through high school. I think end of middle school, beginning of high school, it was really, really bad. By bad, I mean, I was in multiple treatment centers. I flew across the country to go to different places, a couple different, actually, I think like 6 or 7 different inpatient treatment centers. And I was on my deathbed a couple times. And I say that so nonchalantly now because it's my past and I just have said it so many times, but I don't give it the gravity that it deserves most of the time to kind of say where I came from. So I've been through a lot and kind of ended up on the other side. And one of the main reasons why I got out of it was actually fitness and nutrition, which is why I am so passionate about it today. I hired my own fitness and nutrition coach when I was coming out of the other end of it, and I still was feeling really lost. And she guided me. She kind of gave me strength, and I didn't have to fight to be smaller. I didn't have to fight to be skinnier. I got to fight to be stronger and empowered. And that's what I fell in love with this whole entire process. And now I get to do that every single day with my clients. And it's just a blessing. And I'm honored every single day getting to serve these women because I know kind of where they're coming from and the struggles and everything that they've experienced. And personally, I'm still experiencing and just kind of working with them to overcome these things and giving them the power to be empowered. I absolutely love being able to work with these women, and it's honestly like I fell into this, but I couldn't ask for anything better, and my past is my past, but it led me to where I am today. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. Using your story as strength to help other people and help them overcome things so that they know that they're not alone. And another thing I just love about your like presence that you have on social media and how you work this business is that you are faith driven.
Yes.
I am a Christian. I don't consider this a Christian podcast per se, but God is a huge part of my journey and my story. And I really respect, especially nowadays, I really respect women, men and women all together who are not afraid to lead by faith and lead by God and let God be the pivotal part of their story. So I just like kudos to you for being
Thank you.
God is my God and I'm here for it. And he is part of my story. And if you don't want to work with Jesus, then don't work with me.
Yeah, that was actually more of a recent addition. Actually, I started working with athletes as like my first kind of niche of population. And then it was just Gen Pop females. And I was like, I feel like something is missing. Like there's something that I'm not serving to. And honestly, faith was one of the pillars why I'm still alive today. Like I was fighting for my life essentially. And like, what was there to live for? Really, I couldn't think of anything but for faith to kind of keep my message going. And I have more that was in me than a 17-year-old girl who was going to die. Like I had more to say and more to do. And so that was really the only reason that I kept on fighting at the end of the day. And so coming back to my roots essentially now as like on the other side, like way on the other side is really, really cool to kind of see the full circle come together, and just really proud and happy that the community that we've built is kind of where it is today and just continues to grow, because I feel like there's not that many Christian people online that are openly sharing their faith, but also in a way that it's not, I guess, dogmatic and you have to do this way, you have to do this to be a Christian. Like I'm a normal human being. Like I curse all the time and like I'm me. And I'm also Christian. I don't think that defines me as like putting me in a box. I think it's more of just how I live my life and my values, but I don't think less of anybody if they're not. And I'm not very dogmatic, which I haven't really found anybody else similar to me. So I'm so glad we connected, because I'm
Love that.
definitely not that kind of Christian that has to say, oh, you're not Christian because X, Y, Z, or like condemn people. Like I want to love and I want to show that, but in like a way that's like normal, for lack of a better term.
Yes. Like I'm the Christian that really emphasizes the fact that Jesus flipped tables and drank wine. Like like if
I
I could
love
put
that.
it any other way, like because like that's just who I am as a person sometimes, and we try to do our best and live our best, and like Jesus is the only person that's perfect. So like if you want perfection, then look to him. And that's what I try
Exactly.
to do. So yeah, I'm definitely on the same page with that. Like that's why I don't call this podcast a Christian podcast,
Yeah.
but I do talk about my faith so much, and I let that be a part of like when as a CrossFit coach, I have some people come and talk to me about my journey, and they've seen my transformations and everything else, and they're like, well, what is something I can do? And the first thing I tell them is practice gratitude and pray.
Yeah.
And if you're not a Christian, that's fine, you can still practice gratitude and just giving thanks
Uh-huh.
every single day. And like I take that manifestation or gratitude aspect of all of that as like my giving thanks to God. Like I'm grateful for these things because I know that God has placed them in my life. And just even
Yeah.
that, I literally tell people that all the time. That was the first step in my journey to getting over the kind of the somewhat eating disorders that I had when I was in high school and middle school
Mhm.
and stuff, is really just leaning into that and like being like, okay, you know what, there's something to be grateful for every day. Let that be that moment that I'm really talking to God and saying like, thank you for that. And then you kind of just go from there on that.
I love that you said the manifestation piece, because I actually posted a TikTok not too long ago about connecting manifestation and Christianity, because people think that it's so different and that there's so many different like dogmas now, when in reality it's essentially the same thing. Like I called it persistent in prayer, so like similar thing. If we
Yeah.
can focus on something that we want in our lives or something that's good that's happening, we're going to see more good in our lives. So essentially it's manifestation, for lack of a better term, but we're just being persistent in prayer and constantly bringing that thought or that action or that item to the front of our brains. And that's basic psychology. Our brain fixates on that and thinks about it, and we become more happy and positive people when we can focus on the good. So I think it's very crazy to think that there's so many different dogmas now in today's society, but at the end of the day, like it all comes down to the same stuff. And if we can just
Mhm.
all come together and not try to, I guess, reprimand people for different beliefs, like that's
Right.
kind of where the magic happens. And I have amazing people on my team who are not Christian, but they still like love and respect my values and they want to work with me. And at the end of the day, like that's all I can ask for. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about
Yeah.
body image. Okay.
All
So
right.
you shared that you had your eating disorder that you dealt with before you really kicked into gear. And only whatever you're comfortable about sharing, please don't feel any pressure to share any more than you'd like to. I know that I've shared I had emotional eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and bulimia for a really long time. And I did not start talking about it until I started this podcast.
Wow.
Because, yeah. And I kind of felt a little bit like a fraud when I first started because I was talking to people about being healthy and having this journey. Meanwhile, at the very beginning of me starting to do Beyond Broken Hungry and getting everything going, I was still having my nights where I would binge eat food and then be over a toilet for a
Yeah.
couple nights a week. And it wasn't until I really started to say it out loud and talk about it in therapy and talk with my nutrition coach about it that I started to really overcome it. And I think this December will be officially of the 2-year mark that I have not had.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
huge.
Yes, yes. So it's especially for something that, was kind of going around since I was like in middle school. So and I'm 29. So it was a very long thing. And was something that I wouldn't do for a little bit and then would happen again. And through just learning the basics of nutrition and really like having better goals and better organization and things like that, it really started to turn things around. And my goal wasn't, oh, I want to be skinny or I want to be fit. It was really, I want to be healthy. And
Yeah.
once I
Oh,
started
same.
to,
Literally
yes,
same.
yeah. So, like you said, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. So when that is the thing that you're putting forward first, that that is what will get you to the goals that you have, because you have to be able to have a good foundation to build upon and move forward with everything. So to talk
Yeah.
about the body image thing, you shared what you've struggled with personally, but what, and you said that you getting a nutrition coach kind of, you know, helped you with that. But talk about what that looked like and what you do on a daily basis to overcome that, because that's not something that just goes away. It's something that
No.
we constantly, and I'm in the same boat to a degree. I'm constantly having to fight for that to where I don't fall into it again. So let's talk whatever you're comfortable with, but I would love to talk about how you overcome that.
Yeah. So originally, the whole ordeal started with me being into tennis. And I know it's a weird way to kind of start, but I really wanted to be a D1 tennis player. And I was honestly on track for most of my middle school, which is funny, and high school career. And I was just wanted to be a better tennis player. Literally, that's literally all it started out to be, which is so odd to look back on and see like how much turmoil it turned into from just a simple desire of wanting to play D1 tennis. Like
Girl, I
crazy to
played
me.
tennis in middle school, so I know all of, I did the tournaments. I know you
Yeah.
hear, I know all about what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it started. And I was like, okay, in order to be the best person, the best tennis player I could be, I had to eat less and move more. That's all I saw in the media. That's all I was told. Like, that's what I had to do to get to where I wanted to go. It seemed like a pretty straight line. Do it, get there, and you're successful. Little did I know I had celiac disease, which then I got tested for and came back positive. So that kind of threw me for a loop. Celiac disease basically is I'm actually allergic to gluten. So like I have a
Mhm.
clinical diagnosis. And so that scared me because my body didn't tell me it had celiac disease. Like I wasn't communicating with my body. I felt so disconnected from my body. I didn't trust my body at that point because it had led me so astray. Like I was essentially poisoning my body with gluten when I didn't even know I was doing that. So that scared me. And I was like, shoot, I don't know anything. Maybe I should just stop eating all these different things and just only eat quote unquote clean foods to get to my goal. So that's kind of where it started. And then I just got more and more restrictive and I got more and more active, which those two combination do not really go well for an athlete like trying to do for performance. So that kind of spiraled me for a couple years. And then I ended up not being able to go to D1 because as like on signing day, I was in a hospital bed. Like it totally tanked me. So thankfully I play D2 tennis. So like I still was able to make it happen somehow, pulled it out of my butt. But I mean, I'm here
Nice.
today. So that was exciting. Not where I wanted to be, but again, life takes you the way it takes you for a reason. And so kind of coming out of that spiral, I realized that I wasn't really somebody who ever liked pictures of myself. Like ever since I can remember kind of looking back and seeing where my body image struggles kind of probably came from was being young. Like nothing my parents did, nothing society really did. I just didn't really like my body. For whatever reason, one or the other, like I just hated pictures of myself. I would hide behind the camera. I just wouldn't want to be showcased at all, which is funny to me now because I have a social media platform. Anywho, that was like kind of how I grew up. And so coming into the term of like, I don't like my body when it was my biggest, I don't like my body when it was my smallest. What, like, how do I win essentially? Like, I can't win in this situation. Small was too small, big was too big, in my opinion. And like, I couldn't regulate myself to actually feel good in my skin, no matter if I was overweight, underweight. Like, I just hated my body. And that's kind of where it stemmed from is like hatred of my body, which is so sad to think about because now I absolutely love my body. It's been through so much and it's still standing today, which is crazy to me to think about how resilient our bodies are. And I'm just so grateful for that. But the body image piece of it, it kind of came with time, as anything really does. And slowly realizing my body is capable of so much. Like it overcame so much. It overcame my heart rate being so low, I was going to essentially just stop eating. It overcame so many struggles that I just began to be grateful for the body that I had been given and work on empowering it and making it stronger. And strength training and everything, seeing women on social media being strong and not necessarily skinny, like focusing on that strength piece really took that turn for me. And I was able to start focusing on, okay, not what my body looks like, not what the scale says, but like how much can I lift? And that's a pretty cool, when that happens, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
And a lot of my clients have told me the same thing. Like, I don't really care what the scale says. I look better and I feel better in the mirror and I can lift more weight. And that's really what it came down to for me. Still to this day, though, like it's really hard when you see other people on social media because I've only been actively lifting for a couple of years now. And I get comments all the time like, oh my gosh, do you even lift? You don't look like you lift, like all of these things. And I'm like, compared to who? Like I'm only
Right.
competing with myself at this point. And of course, like I still get caught in the comparison trap of, okay, like Sally over there is lifting more than me, or like she looks better than me, and all these other things. But I have to stop myself and say the only person I can compare myself to is myself. And I'm preaching to myself right now because it's so funny to think that I was comparing myself to her. Whereas if we all ate the same and worked out the same, we would still not look the same. So
Exactly.
really the only competition you have is yourself. And if we can kind of get that into our brains that you're competing against yourself yesterday, 1% better every single day, and focusing on clothes you feel good in. For so long, I was just like extra small, and that's what I got used to. But now that I'm like a medium large in some clothes, that took a hot minute for me to get used to and really
Right.
challenge that belief that the bigger size was bad or wrong or worse. Sizes, weights, all of these things, like as they go up, we tend to think that's a bad thing. You have to really question, why is that a bad thing? If my body is happy here and I feel the best I've ever felt, why is a large or a medium worse than an extra small? And that's the thing that like keep on coming back to is why? Really drill in that belief, because society does crazy things to us. And if we can fall into that trap, like it's really hard to get ourselves out. But constantly questioning why, I think really can help you get to the root of everything, because that's kind of what it did for me and a lot of my clients is everybody's so individual. I can't say do this one thing and you're going to fix all your body image issues. It's
Right.
where does that lie for you? Is it with the scale? Is it with kind of the pant size that you wear? Is it with how you feel in your body? Like what is it for you that's kind of holding you back? And of course, like you said, like we still all struggle with it. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect at all, but I've come
Mm-hmm.
a long way. And these are the kind of things that have helped me is just questioning it and why.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so like leading into that, like advice that you would have for someone who is currently battling some body image issues. What advice would you have to say just for them to ask why?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good start, right? No, figuring out like what do you want at the end of the day? Like, is it a certain weight on the scale? If it is, why do you want that? Again, why? Why do you want that weight on the scale? Is it because you felt the best at that number? Okay, great. You want to chase that feeling, not necessarily that number. Was actually on the phone with somebody right before this call, and she was like, yeah, I want to get to like the number was like 150 for her. And I was like, why 150? She was like, that's what I was in high school. I'm like, well, why is that number significant to you? Because this woman's like 29, 30 at this point. And I'm like, why is that number significant to you? She's like, I don't really ever thought about that. I just want to be how I was in high school. I was like, why? And she was like, well, because I felt the best in my skin. I was like, there it is. We're chasing the feeling of how you feel in your body, not the number. If the scale was 170, say, but you felt better than you did in high school, would you still want to be chasing 150 just for the number? Or is it that feeling that you're chasing? I think that's the biggest question is like all of these metrics and things. If we're on the moon, we're going to be a different weight. Like, is it the weight that you're really chasing, or is that feeling and that empowerment that you're really wanting deep down? And that's what you have to be chasing. So if you're saying like right now to yourself, shoot, like I really want to be 10 pounds lighter. Why 10 pounds? Why not 10.25? Like, what is it about that 10 pounds that's going to make that whole thing shift for you? Probably is more of a feeling for you, or like how you felt secure, or all of these things. So, what is that for you? And I can't answer that for anybody but yourself. And I like to do the exercise going back to the whys, 5 why. So ask yourself, okay, what's my goal? Lose 10 pounds. Why? You answer that. Say why again. Do that 5 times until you get to the root of really why you want to lose those 10 pounds. That could be so I can play with my children. That could be so I can have children. So I can run around and not get tired. So I can go up the stairs and not be fatigued. Like, what is that reason for you that you're chasing? And that's going to keep you a lot more disciplined to get to your goal instead of 10 pounds, because 10 pounds is great. But like, what does that actually mean to you tangibly and like long term?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot of people nowadays are bringing up the topic of, oh, I want to be how skinny I was when I was in high school. I am
It's
almost
so
30 years
common.
old. I am a grown woman. I am not 16 and I will never be 16 again.
You
You
probably
know,
don't
and
want to be 16 again.
girl, no, you couldn't pay me to go back to high school. But like, and granted, there in some ways I am about the same size that I was in high school. But when I was in high school, I was on a bunch of medications for my PCOS, and because this was still when they were trying to figure out, what exactly it was and what to do about women who were on it. So I was very inflamed. So I might have only been like, I think I was like 135, 140 in high school, but I was very inflamed. So there's clothes that I have since I was in high school that fit me now, at 160, but because I'm not inflamed anymore. And because I
Yeah.
was like basically swollen when I was in high school. So it's like, I don't care that I was technically like the scale was lower, but I wasn't healthy. There was so much inflammation in my body that I needed to get out that I didn't even really work out of my body until the past 3 years. So I love that
Yeah.
it's that people are we're trying to switch that mindset gear of like, you are no longer a 16-year-old woman or man, like you are a grown up, like we need to act like it. We need to treat our bodies as such. And I love that, asking why and why and why. And I think that that's so powerful. And I just love that. Giving me a different perspective for things too.
I'm glad.
I'm always
It's hard.
learning,
It's hard.
as well.
It's hard. It's
Absolutely.
not like an easy exercise, but like if you actually take the time, and it shouldn't take you 5 minutes, like it should take a bit of time, and like you have to think about your answers because it's not the same for everybody, and it's gonna really, really hit home probably for you. And that's the hardest thing that it did for me was like, shoot, it wasn't a number. It's like a feeling that I'm chasing, and I'm still chasing that feeling, and I'm getting closer every day, but I'm still chasing that feeling and not the number. And the number honestly doesn't really mean anything to me now. It's just again that feeling that I really, really want. And you don't have your number or your size pasted to your forehead so everybody can see. Like they see who you are as a person. And I don't really care how much you weigh. You probably don't care how much I weigh. It's just the connection and how we can serve each other and build upon each other's like platforms and reach more women and all these things to actually be what we're meant to do on this earth. It's not like we're meant to be on your deathbed. Okay, congratulations, she hit her weight loss goal. Like, no, we're so much more than that.
Right. I love that. I love that.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond Broken Hungry. If you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to Beyond Broken Hungry wherever you get your podcast so you can get notified every time a new episode drops. It would also mean the world to me if you rate, review, and share the podcast too, so more people can join the BBH tribe. Follow this podcast on social media at Beyond Broken Hungry to interact and see how I'm stumbling toward wellness one day at a time. And most importantly, tune back in next week for another episode. See you then.